a nation divided ethnic and political tensions in post-independence Nigeria. Nigeria gained independence from British colonial rule in 1960. It was a momentous occasion filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future. However, beneath the surface of this newfound freedom, deep-seated ethnic and political divisions were simmering. Nigeria was a nation of diverse ethnicities and religions, with the three largest groups, the Igbo in the east, the Yoruba in the west, and the Hausa-Fulani in the north, vying for power and influence. The Igbo, known for their entrepreneurial spirit and education, had gained prominence in various sectors of society. They were well represented in the civil service, education, and the military. This success, however, was met with suspicion and resentment from some quarters, particularly in the north, where the Hausa-Fulani, with their long history of political dominance, felt their grip on power threatened. The political landscape was equally fragmented. Political parties were largely divided along ethnic and regional lines, further exacerbating tensions. The Northern People's Congress, dominated by the Hausa-Fulani, controlled the federal government through an alliance with a faction of the Yoruba-dominated Action Group. The Igbo, largely supporting the National Council of Nigerian Citizens, felt increasingly marginalized and politically disenfranchised. As the decade progressed, these divisions deepened, fueled by a toxic mix of political maneuvering, ethnic chauvinism, and a struggle for control over resources. A series of rigged elections and escalating violence culminating in the Western Region crisis of 1962 pushed Nigeria closer to the brink of chaos. The stage was set for a series of events that would plunge the nation into one of the darkest chapters in its history. Coups and chaos, the descent into violence and the persecution of the Igbo. The year 1966 marked a turning point in Nigeria's post-independence trajectory, a year when the simmering tensions erupted into violence and bloodshed. In January, a group of mostly Igbo army officers, frustrated by the corruption and perceived northern domination of the government, staged a coup d'etat. The coup, though poorly planned and ultimately unsuccessful, resulted in the deaths of several high-profile politicians, including the Prime Minister Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa and the Premier of the Northern Region, Sir Ahmadu Bello. While the coup plotters claimed to be motivated by a desire to rid the country of corruption and install a more efficient government, their actions were widely perceived in the north as an Igbo attempt to seize power. A wave of anti-Igbo violence swept across northern Nigeria in retaliation. Thousands of Igbo civilians living in the north were targeted, their homes and businesses destroyed, and many were brutally murdered. In July 1966, another coup, this time led by northern officers, toppled the government of General Aguiyi Ironsi, the Igbo head of state who had assumed power after the January coup. The coup plotters accused Ironsi of being sympathetic to the Igbo officers involved in the January coup and of failing to protect northerners from the ensuing violence. General Yakubu Gowon, a Christian from a minority ethnic group in the north, emerged as the new head of state. The July coup further deepened the ethnic and political divisions within Nigeria. The violence directed at the Igbo continued unabated, forcing hundreds of thousands to flee their homes in the north and seek refuge in the eastern region. The eastern region, under the leadership of its military governor, Colonel Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, became a sanctuary for the displaced Igbo population. However, the situation remained tense, with deep mistrust and animosity brewing between the East and the federal government. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of Nigeria. The birth of a nation, Biafra's declaration of independence. The months following the July 1966 coup were marked by heightened tensions and a breakdown of trust between the eastern region and the federal government. The massacre of Igbos in the north, coupled with the perceived unwillingness of the federal government to address the root causes of the violence or bring the perpetrators to justice, fueled a sense of alienation and insecurity among the Igbo. They felt increasingly marginalized and feared for their safety and future within a united Nigeria. Chukwuemeka Ojukwu, the charismatic and resolute military governor of the eastern region, emerged as a powerful voice for the Igbo people. Ojukwu, a staunch advocate for the rights of his people, condemned the violence against the Igbo, and demanded greater autonomy for the eastern region within a restructured Nigeria. He argued that only through a decentralized federal system could the safety and rights of all ethnic groups be guaranteed. However, negotiations between the eastern region and the federal government, aimed at finding a political solution to the crisis, faltered. The federal government, led by General Yakubu Gowon, was wary of Ojukwu's demands for greater autonomy, fearing that it would pave the way for the disintegration of Nigeria. The situation reached a boiling point in May 1967 when Gowon announced the division of Nigeria into 12 states, a move that was seen by many in the East as a deliberate attempt to weaken the eastern region. Facing what he perceived as an existential threat to his people, Ojukwu made the momentous decision to declare the independence of the Republic of Biafra on May 30, 1967. With this declaration, a new nation was born out of the ashes of a divided Nigeria, setting the stage for a bloody and protracted civil war that would leave an indelible mark on the history of the nation. A nation at war. The Nigerian Civil War, 1967 to 1970. The declaration of Biafran independence was met with swift and decisive action from the Nigerian government. General Yakubu Gowon declared war, vowing to crush the secessionist movement and preserve the unity of Nigeria. On July 6, 1967, the Nigerian army launched a two-pronged offensive into Biafra, marking the beginning of a brutal and protracted civil war that would last for nearly 3 years. The Nigerian government, with its superior military might and resources, enjoyed an initial advantage. The Biafran army, though fighting with determination and resilience, was outmatched in terms of manpower, weaponry, and logistical capabilities. Despite these challenges, the Biafran people, united by a shared sense of purpose and a deep-seated fear of persecution, rallied behind their leaders and mounted a spirited defense of their newly declared nation. The war raged on, marked by fierce battles, heavy casualties, and widespread suffering. The Nigerian government, determined to crush the rebellion, imposed a land, air, and sea blockade on Biafra, effectively cutting off the fledgling nation from the outside world. The blockade had a devastating impact on the civilian population, leading to widespread famine and a humanitarian crisis of catastrophic proportions. The war became a complex and multifaceted conflict, drawing in regional and international actors. While the Nigerian government received support from Great Britain, the Soviet Union, and some other countries, Biafra garnered sympathy and assistance from France, Portugal, Israel, and various humanitarian organizations. The involvement of these external actors added another layer of complexity to the conflict, prolonging the war and exacerbating the suffering of the civilian population.